Thank you very much for joining us here on timforrest.com. I'm so excited. I've got my friend here, John Kuder. We can talk to. I've known John for many years. His family grew up running a farm, and he sold branded eggs in stores in the area. So, John, welcome to timforrest.com. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing about your consulting business. You work with family-owned businesses, and so many folks in the food industry are family-owned. I mean, almost a majority of businesses in food are family-owned. And so, just welcome here at timforrest.com.
Thanks so much, Tim. Wow, you you mentioned the eggs. Yeah, we had an egg farm. That's where I started in the family business. There's a lot of dirty jobs on an egg farm. I'm not going to talk about some of it.
Well, how
But
does
yeah,
that?
we
How I mean, are eggs? I mean, do you have to go out there early in the morning? Like I think of cows. Is that an early morning, or can you just do it whenever during the day? Is it normal hours, or what? How does the egg business work?
It starts pretty early. I mean, like you're not timing you don't have to feed them right at daybreak or anything like that. But chickens they had to be fed twice a day. We had lights in the chicken houses that were on a timer, so that we tried to keep the day length even,
Yep.
so that they lay longer during the year,
Yep.
because like most animals, they tend not to reproduce during the wintertime when the nights are short and the weather's cold.
So for folks that are in the food business, how does that relate to them?
I haven't worked with agricultural families at all
Oh,
in
okay.
my consulting. It's been more technology related or training related. So I've worked with a software firm that they sold a trading platform, and I developed their a software tutorial for them. The first one, like on a CD, and
What are the outcomes? Like when you work with a family-owned business, what are the outcomes that generates for them? What happens? What happens when you work with them?
improved processes, greater profitability, hopefully. What you asked me about the egg farm, and I think what I learned there that has made a lot of difference was the idea of process improvement, and really focusing on process, quality process. In the eggs, it was quality. We did things that were above and beyond what the average did. Like you may know, eggshells are very porous. So one of the things and so the liquid inside the egg, especially here in the heat of Florida, will evaporate out through the shell quickly. And so to keep the interior quality of the egg, to make it last as long as possible, basically shelf life, we picked up the eggs, we had sponges that had handles on them, and we used mineral oil, and they would just dab the mineral oil on the top of the eggs, and that drop of oil would spread down over the entire eggshell and fill all those pores in, and stop that um,
Wow.
evaporation. And we'd get at least another 2 weeks of freshness out of our eggs compared to others.
Wow, that's incredible. Just that one thing, and that retail, that's
Yeah.
a big deal. When I think of a family-run business, I think of a family-owned farm asked me one time, and they had a retail business as well. They asked me to manage their annual meeting for the family. And that was really a trying experience. I thought it was going to be a real easy thing to do. Well, I hate to say it was easy. I thought we were going to go in there, have an agenda, go down the bullet points of lists like a corporate meeting. But with a family run business, it was so different. What can you share for us for people? Um, you know, how could I have been more effective, or what should I have been looking for, or thinking about in going into that annual board meeting, with a family-owned business? How could I have been more effective doing that? It was a very trying time. It was very long. There were a lot more emotions in that meeting than I'm used to in, say, corporate meetings. And so I'm kind of curious from your perspective how maybe how I could have handled that better. Or is that all family business? Do you have any opinions about that?
I couldn't give you I mean, I can't say what all, but I would say that because every family is different and has its own dynamics, there are themes. There are going to be common themes, but every family is different, and every family business is going to be different. And there's a level of complexity in a family business that doesn't exist in other businesses, and they face what I call internal challenges. Uh, in addition to all the challenges that every other business faces, in terms of the external challenges of the marketplace and trends and, world events and all that, the internal challenges of just employee dynamics and so forth. And truly every employee brings their own family dynamics to work with them. That, we're family people. We can't help it. We've got our relationship with our parents and siblings, but in family businesses, you've got this mixture of business roles and roles and responsibilities, ownership, and then you've got the family relationships that may run longer than the business relationships. And so keeping those, well, there's no way to keep them completely separate, but which is in charge in this situation is what is so important.
You just mentioned obstacles on the families. What are some of the biggest obstacles you see? Is it simply that the keeping the lines between equity ownership and family ties and employees? What do you see are some of the biggest challenges, and how do you help? Can you share with us how you help someone through some of those challenges? What are they, and how do you help?
So I'm going to say, I think that they fall into three main categories. And the one that gets the most attention from what I've seen is succession. And, there's a lot of big consultant firms that go after the big family enterprises because it's deep pockets. There's a lot of money there to build big fat fees, and they've got a complex organization to work with. But that's, succession is, in my opinion, the last of the three, because the first of the three is what I call identity. And this is my way of looking at it. So you've got identity, equity, and succession. And identity, and each of them falls into three subgroups. Okay. So identity, you've got individuals, right? They bring their own identity, they bring their own baggage to the table, whether they're working in the business or not. You've got their influence. Then you've got the relationships between two or more people, generally two, father, son, father, daughter, husband and wife, siblings, and in-laws. There's so many different variations. You can't catalog them all. And you start looking at those. When I said complexity, you look at all the different ways that you can have family relationships between two people. And then you also look at the various roles that people can have between being an owner that doesn't work in the business, somebody who works in the business, a manager, or somebody who's involved in governance. And you can get into like 17 different roles there just with the business, and then the family on top of that. So that's where I wanted to simplify it down into, some categories of things. Okay. So within the identity, individuals, relationships, and then the identity of the company. It's really important for the people that are working in the business as employees and family members to all have a sense of that company history and that company identity. And the values and have those shared values. That's part of what keeps everybody pulling in the same direction. And then, where that can go, or there can be an issue in that area, is the idea of, well, this is the way we've always done it, so this is the way we're going to always keep doing it. That resistance to change. I call it history versus habit. Confusing just the way we do things with who we are, and the more clearly we can define the company values and brand and identity, the less likely we are to confuse that.
I'm just thinking of so many different businesses I work with where I'll talk to one generation. There's multi-generations in a business, and the father, he's always done it that way. The new generation is like, well, we can't get them to change. We're going to have to wait until we run the business to make these changes. Do you help with anything around that? Is that an area? Am I seeing that right? Is that an opportunity?
That's a very common, when I mentioned themes, that's a very common theme of, the generational differences. There's layers within that. You've got a founder that came with a skill set, and they built it, and they've got the sweat equity in it. And maybe their kids, that next generation certainly doesn't have their experience. And maybe that's by design, but they just know so much. The older generation knows so much that they can't really express that they're really confident in that their way is the only way. And there's this resistance to change, at the same time fear of change, because the older generation is also facing eventual retirement, and there's a fear of being irrelevant. I mean, I'm 30 years in I was 30 years in a family business. I was third generation, although I didn't work with my grandfather. My wife was basically 10th generation on a family farm. We've worked with other family businesses or second or third generation. So we've seen a lot of those issues come up.
What are some of the tools you use, or how is it that you're able to impact these situations? Because they sound almost impossible. They sound glacial, like giant iceberg. There's no way to get around these problems. Are there ways to solve them, or we just have to wait, do nothing for 10 years until we can run the business, or what is it we can do?
Oh, and I remember that feeling of waiting, wondering if I was going to have. I wish I'd had the tools I have now, 30 years ago. But yes, there are tools. They just involve changing the way we think and being okay with that. It really all does come down to communication. Communication, back to that identity thing. Communication with ourselves is the most important. Being able to be honest with ourselves and admit, know our strengths. I mean, that's a really powerful thing, is for everybody to know who they are, know their strengths. The more comfortable you are with your own identity and you have a sense of self-confidence, the more comfortable, the less these issues come into play. So much of this comes into, become big issues because people are insecure and they're, afraid of losing their identity.
Wow.
And so it's people stuff. And yes, we have a set of tools. We have specific training in some tools called mind models, and mental models have been more publicly named. Charlie Munger, who works with Warren Buffett.
Yep.
Warren Buffett's partner, Charlie Munger, is a big proponent and wrote a book where he outlines a lot of these mental models that he uses. And we all use mental models. They're just a simplification, a framework of, to try to take something that's big and complex and get it down to something that we can, think about easily.
Your mental models
Mm-hmm.
have dramatically improved results in my life, massive results in my life. Is there anything you can share with folks about how to understand that, or how they could understand more about mind models, or how they might learn more about them from you? Or
yes, we do. Well, if they want to move the fastest, working with us one-on-one would be the fast way to go. I can share, and I guess you can maybe put something on the bottom of the screen or something about the tools that we're using. The mind models were discovered and defined by a gentleman named Blair Dunkley. Making the story short is tough. Let's just say he was working with people that were on the fringes of society in a last chance desperation situation, and they were, and he needed to get them results, and he was able to have an 80+%, I believe is 80% success rate at getting the people employable and self-sustaining.
So the mind models that have helped me so much in the food business, in my food business, that you've shared with me, we've worked together on, you're saying those came from that background, and they will help people in a family-run food business to be more effective.
Definitely, because they are, well, first of all, they're tested and proven into the most difficult possible conditions of people, where 80% of the people he was working with were potentially suicidal. The thing that makes them so important is it doesn't require any particular set of beliefs. It doesn't require that you get a particular mood or state. You don't have to get yourself all pumped up. It's how you think rather than what you think about. And they're just little shifts that are really already coded into us. They're, for the technical minded folks, I'm a computer geek. So, there's a really low level programming language called machine language that, computers run on. And this is like the machine language for the mind. I like the term, we've coined the term, the invisible obvious. There's many things that are like that, but in mind models are that way, in that they're so basic and so simple. When somebody gets them, it's like, well, yeah, it's obvious. The thing about it that makes it invisible is that when something's really obvious, we don't think it's worth noticing. So we don't notice it, and therefore it's invisible.
if people wanted to get in touch with you, I know you've got a book, you've got an opportunity for folks to download about your tools. How would they go about getting that?
Yeah, you mentioned a book, so I would be happy to share this. I'm going to put together some notes from, about what we're, the family business and the three areas that we're talking about. But
Right.
they can reach me at John at kuderconsultinggroup.com. I would say the simplest and easiest thing to understand about mind models is the concept of curiosity. We are born with it. It's literally what causes us to survive our first few days, is being curious enough to find food. Curiosity is like the get out of jail free card for your mind.
So is
Yeah,
curiosity, will that get us out of family drama in a family run business?
it goes a long way towards it, yes. Because
Awesome.
as soon as we get emotional, especially if we feel threatened, our brain, we go into a defensive mode. It's hardwired again into us, and we're not able. It shuts down the frontal part of our brain that does the executive thinking, and we become very reactionary and survival, fight or flight. And so curiosity is what gets us back out of that. But if you listen with the idea, a true curiosity of, I really want to understand where this person's coming from. I want to be able to explain what they're telling me better than they're explaining it to me, so that I can say what I heard and they say, yes, that's exactly what I meant.
Is there anything else that we need to discuss before we close out and we share again how people can get in touch with you, learn more, maybe get your download, and then maybe learn more about family run businesses?
So I have set up for the download, I have set up a page on my website.
Okay.
So that is kuderconsultinggroup.com.
Yep.
TFC, that stands for Tim Forrest Consulting.
Okay.
TFC
Perfect.
hyphen podcast.
John, the mind models have helped us so much, not just me, but members of my team. I know just on the YouTube channel with Hazel, we've had over a 280% increase in viewership when we applied the mind models to there, and I just know it's helpful to really any business, and specifically family run businesses. Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you for being here today and sharing your insights at
TimForrest.com.
Is anywhere other than TimForrest.com or YouTube.com/TimForrest Consulting. Be sure to go over there, like, and subscribe. We appreciate you being here today. Have a great day.